Yo, I am Gunnar from Thrifty Traveler here with the man who needs no introduction. It's a guy who's got a new haircut and is rapidly skyrocketing up the rankings of most handsome guy on the podcast. It's Kyle Potter. How you doing, Kyle?
I think we've been here under better circumstances, haircut notwithstanding.
That's true. So I have a quick question for you to get started. Are you more mad that Southwest lied to everyone about protecting bags fly free? Or are you more mad that they ruined our first podcast?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to dodge it. And I'm just going to say, I had just hoped that we wouldn't have the magic of podcast show business wear off within one day of starting the podcast, that we would at least get, a couple of weeks, maybe even months before we got caught with our pants down on big news that we had to go back and update the episode to catch it. No, this is big news, and we're going to spend a lot of this episode talking about it.
Yeah, we always knew there'd be no magic with two guys like us on screen.
Well, that's true.
We'll talk about it at length, like we said. So today on the show, we're going to talk about a major dip in airfare, what you should be doing about it. We'll also look into Hyatt's latest award chart changes in our featured segment called The Extra Mile. We're going to talk about Southwest Airlines. And like any good podcast, we're going to lean heavily into our personal grievances as we do so. Welcome back to the Thrifty Traveler podcast.
All right, I get to lead off this segment. We are kicking things off by jumping into something hot and something cold, where we look into the good and the bad of the news out there for travelers in this past week. And we're going to start with something hot. Gunnar, there's a new trend in flight prices that can be a big win, whether you're just, looking for a trip later this spring, maybe early summer, but also if you even have something on the books. So kind of spell it out for us.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is demand in air travel right now, especially domestically in the US in April and May, has just bottomed out. And the airlines have all admitted as such, but we're seeing some of the lowest fares that we've ever seen, specifically for those April and May months. And what it's created is it's a great time to book flights if you're able to travel in April and May, but even more so if you booked April or May flights a long time ago and you paid out the ear for them, now's the time to go back and rebook, because especially when you're flying an airline like Delta or Southwest or American, you can just rebook and get a credit for the difference, get a voucher for the difference in price. So it's pretty much risk-free. You're keeping that seat assignment if you booked it. And that's just one of our favorite travel hacks, period. It's the easiest travel hack there is. It's just keeping an eye on the airfare you've already booked and then just getting a better rate as you go. But the key is you had to have booked main cabin to do this. If you got a basic economy fare a long time ago, you might be stuck with what you got. But right now we're just seeing flights are really cheap, and even more so than booking anew, it's time to rebook if you've got something on the books.
This is by far the single greatest silver lining of the pandemic, that, every airline across the board, not just Southwest, but, American, Delta, United, even most of the, major foreign airlines made their main cabin economy fares flexible for good. No more change fees, no more cancellation fees, which again, as Gunnar is saying, gives you that flexibility and that ability to keep an eye out for price decreases, which we're seeing a lot of recently. And when you see them, when you get an alert from a Google Flights price alert, which everybody who's listening to this needs to be using, not just for the flights that you want to book, but for the flights that you've already booked. Because once that hits your inbox, you just go in, you either modify your current reservation and just rebook it into that same seat that you already have, or you cancel it, rebook it, and pocket the difference as an airfare voucher or a credit. I mean, I have lost track of how much money in airfare credits that I've pocketed as a result of this over the last 4 years. It's certainly north of $1,000. It's probably closer to $2,000, if not $3,000. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. At least that. My mantra when booking travel is just, you're never done booking a trip. Just stay at it. Keep tracking those prices. It's so often that fares go down like this and you're able to capitalize on it. And then with all the credits you build up over time, maybe use those on a much better seat the next time, or an upgrade this time. I mean, it's just making your travels better just by staying on it. Google Flights price alerts. 4 words, save you a lot of money in travel. Can we dig into something cold, though?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we have to. Okay. Hyatt announced their award chart changes. We've got some hotels that we didn't want to see that are going to get more expensive. A couple of bright side pieces of news
I mean,
there,
not
but
much.
not much.
No, let's just call it what it is. It's negative.
Yeah. So I guess we were expecting maybe something worse, but describe this to us. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so every year, right around this time in March, Hyatt reshuffles all of its thousands of properties up and down its award chart. Some get a little bit less expensive when you're redeeming points for a free night certificate. Most, though, end up moving up, and that's exactly what we saw here this year. More than 100 properties on the move upward, which means that all of these properties are going to cost you more points if you want to book a free night, and just a handful dropping in price. So again, let's call it what it is. This is negative. This is something that people have to prepare for and try to take advantage of while they can. But that's the silver lining here, is that Hyatt actually gives everybody, really a 1 month warning to book all of these properties before they go up in price. And because, Hyatt and all the major hotel chains allow you to book at least 12, if not 13 months in advance, there's some discrepancies with that on a property by property basis, but that's the rule of thumb. That allows you to lock in a stay, as far out as April of 2026 before these properties go up in price. So at the time you're listening to this, if you're listening to this when this episode comes out, you've still got a few days. This whole big change with Hyatt's award chart takes place on March 25th. So, you really need to get moving, because we're talking about just a matter of days before, some properties are going to cost you 3,000, 5,000, even 10,000 points per night in additional points, which is again a real bummer. The flip side of this is, and we had written about this in just the days prior to Hyatt coming out with this, big bash of bad news, that we worried Hyatt's award chart in its entirety was going to be a thing of the past, that Hyatt was finally going to take a page out of the books of Marriott and Hilton and others and transition just wholly towards dynamic award pricing, where the price of a night is just based on the cash rate, not on a ironclad award chart, which is where Hyatt gets a lot of its value from. So it could have been a lot worse, but it's still pretty bad. I mean, there are a lot of hits here, and I know you've got a couple and I've got a few, which, we would urge people to go out and book before it's too late.
Yeah, a couple of mine I've stayed at, and a couple of them are just hotels I've had on my list where I might have to take our own advice here and get booking. But the Park Hyatt Tokyo was the first one on my list. One of my favorite stays ever. It moved to Category 8, so it's going to cost you 40 to 45,000 World of Hyatt points.
And it's not even open right now. It's been closed for renovations for months. I don't even think anything is bookable. So this is one that really, really hurts, because going from 30,000 to 40,000 points per night without the ability to book, a stay for next year far in advance, that one's really tough.
Yeah, it stinks. That's the Lost in Translation Hotel, for those who don't know. It's a beautiful space. It's really cool. It did feel very old. It was due for an update, but it was a pretty unbelievable hotel stay. I really enjoyed it there. And before I checked in there, I spent a few nights at the Hyatt Regency Tokyo, which is also moving up, moving into Category 5, 20,000 points a night. I'll say it's not worth that. So this is a tough one as well. It was a really affordable way to stay in Tokyo, that Hyatt Regency. Great location. The rooms are small and nothing to write home about, but this one stinks as well.
Yeah, this one was on my list too. And just as a whole, Tokyo in Japan is getting hammered. I mean, there are 9 Hyatt Japan properties that are moving up in price on the 25th of March. The 2 that you just mentioned, the Hyatt Regency Tokyo also really hurts, because the number of properties for which you can use a Hyatt free night certificate from their World of Hyatt credit card, that's capped at a Category 4, which means it can cost no more than 15,000 points for a standard night. The Hyatt Regency Tokyo, one of the few really affordable properties in Tokyo that fell underneath that umbrella. And as it moves from, 15,000 to 20,000 points for a standard night, that's not going to be an option anymore. So definitely anybody who's looking at using a free night certificate from one of their Hyatt credit cards or one of their perks from status, you got to move on the Hyatt Regency Tokyo.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a bunch of Hyatt Regencies, which is, more or less a pretty dependable hotel. You know what
Sure.
you're getting with a Hyatt Regency. They're not all created equal, that's for sure. But a lot of those are moving up to Category 5, which kind of stinks. And you get a lot of Hyatt Regencies around airports too, which is when I often use them. It would be a great use of that Category 4 certificate. But No longer for me. Hyatt Regency Vancouver is one of the ones on my list. Vancouver is just one of my favorite cities. An expensive place to stay, though, so that would have been nice. Book that while you can. And the nicest one on my list, the Andaz Peninsula Papagayo Resort in Costa Rica. This place looks unbelievable, and it is probably rightly moving to Category 8. You can't fault Hyatt on this one, but it was good while it lasted.
It was good while it lasted, but also I think it was I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago that this property was a category 4 at 15,000 points per night. So in less than, in basically half a decade, it's gone from 15,000 points a night up to 40,000 or more, which is a little absurd. But I guess, Hyatt has seen the headlines about inflation and figured they could get in on the action.
Yeah, why not? Everyone's heading down there anyway. What else do you have on your list?
Yeah, I have another Tokyo property, the Andaz Tokyo Toranomon Hills, moving up from 30,000 to 40,000 points per night for a standard night. That one personally has been on my list forever. It's also gotten really hard to book. So, if it just so happens that by increasing the award rate at this property, it does get a little bit easier to book at 40,000 points a night, then, you might make peace with that. But as it stands, that one's pretty tough to swallow. There are shockingly few affordable all-inclusives still in Hyatt's portfolio that you can book with points. It had been one of the biggest bright spots of using Hyatt points, period. And within the last few years, every time, Hyatt does this each spring, more and more of these all-inclusives move way up the food chain and start costing 40,000 points a night or more, which is the case at the Secrets Maroma Beach Riviera Cancun. I know John, who runs our premium flight deal service, this is one of his favorite resorts, period. So I know he's probably racing to book this as we speak.
Yeah, I think so. He's definitely on worldofhyatt.com making things happen today. Any more on your list that stand out?
I'll just call out one more, the Grand Hyatt Kauai Resort and Spa on the island of Kauai. It's on the south side. I haven't stayed here myself, but I've walked the grounds. It's beautiful. I've never heard a bad word about the property from anybody who's stayed, but when it's going to cost soon 40,000 points a night, that becomes pretty tough to swing, especially when there's a lot of great Airbnbs, VRBOs in that area of Kauai. So I'm not going to race to book this one, but definitely anybody who's trying to pull off a big family vacation to Kauai and has Hyatt points to burn, that's one that you definitely want to book before March 25th.
Yeah, definitely. You all have been warned. It's time to use your Hyatt points on these properties that are about to go up in price. We have a full list at our website as well. We wrote about this just a few days ago. So, anything else in this?
I think we've covered it. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It's a real bummer. I'm grateful that it wasn't even worse, but it's hard to celebrate this one.
Yeah, tough one.
All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor, which is us. Feeling overwhelmed by all the travel credit card options out there? That's why our team created Card Pilot, a tool to help you pick the best travel credit card for you. Use Card Pilot and you'll get an expert recommendation based on your spending and your travel goals within minutes. No personal info, no credit inquiry required. Unlike other tools out there, Card Pilot even considers the travel credit cards you've already got and the convoluted application rules in order to recommend something new for you. Whether you're after the biggest sign-up bonus you can find, lounge access, or hotel perks, Card Pilot does the hard work for you so you can maximize your points and travel smarter.
And we haven't even told you the price yet, and that's the best part. It's completely free. No gimmicks, no hidden fees, just expert guidance from the travel pros here at Thrifty Traveler. So before you apply for another card, make sure it's the right one. Head to thriftytraveler.com/cardpilot and let Card Pilot help you with your rewards game. That's thriftytraveler.com/cardpilot, your first class ticket to travel smarter. All right, it is time for the Extra Mile, our featured topic of the week, where we dive deeper into one aspect of cheap travel. And this week, we're going to ask the question, what are you doing, Southwest?
I don't think they can answer that question. We could have them on here, and I think they would just kind of be...
Yeah, they don't want to talk about it, and there's a reason for that. So let me just catch everyone up here first. Southwest shocked everybody last week by announcing it would no longer include 2 free check bags on all fares, starting for new tickets purchased May 28th and onward. So only travelers who buy business select tickets or have that top A-list preferred status will continue to get 2 free check bags. If you have A-list status or a co-branded Southwest credit card, you'll get 1 free check bag. Oh, and just 6 months ago, Southwest executives promised that its ultra popular bags fly free policy would remain untouched. They insisted it was part of what made them different and was a key factor in why passengers chose Southwest over other airlines. And that's not all. It also,
The list goes on.
I have to continue the list because we got to catch everybody up. The new basic economy fares are also being announced. That breaks another promise. And they announced that any new flight credits will now expire after previously saying that flight credits would never expire on Southwest. Oh, and Rapid Rewards points will be harder to earn on the cheapest tickets, and those same Rapid Rewards points will be priced differently soon, too. Okay. Instead of me getting worked up way too early in this segment,
Take a breather.
I think
We're gonna
we
be
should
okay.
go through Southwest's year and explain kind of what has happened to them over a timeline, and I guess why it matters, even if you never fly Southwest. So, May 22nd of last year, Southwest fares appear on Google Flights. We were sitting right over here in our office. John Schellbetter, our chief flight deal analyst, turned his monitor towards me and showed me a Southwest fare populating on Google Flights. We all thought something must be wrong, but lo and behold, it was true.
Unbelievable moment that came out of nowhere. No warning, no press release, no video statement, nothing. And this was really important. And, I think we'll get into this. I think that decision probably laid the groundwork for what we saw from Southwest last week, because for decades, Southwest just refused to sell its tickets anywhere other than Southwest.com. It wanted to condition people to go to Southwest.com, open their Southwest app, look there, look nowhere else, and book those Southwest tickets. So suddenly seeing it on, the biggest and the best flight deal search engine, Google Flights, without a word of warning. I mean, this was a major, major sea change in how people find and book Southwest tickets.
Yeah, it was huge. It was, and finally giving us an apples to apples comparison with what the other airlines are charging. We were all assuming we're okay. Okay, now people aren't going to see that Southwest fares are actually that much cheaper, right? We thought this would finally kind of lower the curtain and show that Southwest fares are pretty much right on par with everybody else. But what it also did show is that those fares are coming with 2 free check bags. And so when you line them up against Delta, American, United, Spirit, Frontier, you're going to see all the value you're getting. So it was kind of double-edged sword for Southwest, but a pretty amazing announcement. And then over the course of the last few months, they've also added Kayak and Expedia. So if you have a meta search engine that you want to use to go find airfare, you're going to see Southwest almost everywhere you look now. So this was a major change. And then in September, we got another major change when Southwest announced assigned seating and extra legroom seats. Also, a massive announcement for them, considering part of their whole brand is the open seating policy and the fact that every seat on the plane is more or less the same. But after that announcement, did you think anything more could change?
Yeah. I just didn't expect it to be this, and I didn't expect it to happen so soon after Southwest CEO Bob Jordan insisted that bags fly free was untouchable, that it was part of their brand, which I agree with. It is part of their brand. I mean, it's synonymous with Southwest. It is far and away. That simplicity is the reason why legions of travelers out there love Southwest. It's the reason why so many people didn't bother searching through other airfare sites before, when Southwest required it, because they knew what they were getting. They loved the airline. And, honestly, I'm sure if you put it to them and told people the truth, which is that, Southwest prices are generally on par with, if not more than, some of the major carriers like American, Delta, and United, they probably would have said, fine, I'm getting my 2 free check bags. I don't have to deal with feeling nickel and dimed. I feel like my time and my money is valuable to this airline. And then, last week, Bob Jordan comes out and says that it's about securing our future. We're announcing changes to our business that will help us return to the levels of profitability we all expect. Not return to profitability, but the levels of profitability. And then also the cherry on top here was, quote, our DNA isn't open seating or even bags fly free. It's a dedication to service and hospitality and to the golden rule for each other and for our customers. And it just landed like a wet fart. I can't believe that he said this out loud, let alone on video and a pre-recorded message that they could have edited. I think the response, which has been almost unanimously negative. And from my perspective, dwarfs any kind of negative backlash to airline changes that I've ever seen, including when Delta first tried to revamp its medallion status program a couple of years ago. It's unreal that this is the tack that they took and that they went this far. But and I think we're going to get into it. It's clear Southwest and CEO Bob Jordan are not calling the shots here.
Yeah, I think I saw lots of people saying that the video appeared a little bit like a hostage video. And I just want, Cal, can you explain kind of why this has all happened and who's responsible? Because it is almost hard for me to be angry at Bob Jordan about this, because it actually does not feel like he's in charge here.
No. So, going back, almost a year or so, give or take, a hedge fund called Elliott Investment Management took a large stake in Southwest and began, really hammering them to make some big changes. Again, not to return to profitability, but to restore elevated profitability, which is just Wall Street speak for make us more money, because, we own a good chunk of the airline now. And, they have just been continuing to pressure, the CEO, the entire airline, gaining seats on the board in order to gain the leverage to push Southwest to do what Southwest has insisted for decades that it's not: become one of, just another airline. Charge more for bags, charge more for seat assignments, copy a lot of the unpopular measures that have proven to be moneymakers, like introducing basic economy fares. And, we saw late last year, Southwest kind of holding out, doing half measures, trying to satisfy, their new ownership. And it's clear that they just ran out of rope and they had to go even further. And that's what brought us to, what happened in early March.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I'm sure there are a lot of travelers out there who, like me, do not care about shareholder value. I do not care about the investors and how much money they're going to make on Southwest. What is important is the health of the airlines in general, and Southwest in particular, who has driven the market in the U.S. with domestic airfare for a long time. But even so, you'd be hard pressed to explain to me that this is going to make Southwest a better airline. And this matters a lot, even if you don't fly Southwest. And I tell people all the time that you really do need to care about this airline, even if you hate the open seating and the boarding corrals and stanchions and the things that people don't like about Southwest. That's fine, even if you never fly them. When Southwest runs a sale, every airline stumbles over themselves to run a competing sale at the same time. And this has happened since I've started tracking airfare, since essentially 2020. And it's like clockwork. Southwest announces a sale on Tuesday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon, Delta's fares are $1 cheaper. And this is how it always happens.
Unmistakable. They are the single biggest factor driving the domestic airfare price and market, and it's not even close. I mean, Spirit and Frontier, which, by the way, and we touched on this last week, are struggling too. And, these three airlines are, and even more if you lump in some of the other low cost carriers who, some are doing better than others, they all really dictate domestic flight pricing. And so if you start to see these airlines on their heels, or, United, Delta, American don't feel as if they have to respond as strongly when Southwest offers one of these fare sales, that's kind of troubling, and that's exactly why, the booking domestic flights is one of the highlights for 2025, because we wondered one day before Southwest made this move whether this could last much longer. And I think we've proven ourselves right that there is cause for concern, because it's hard to see how strong of an airline Southwest emerges out of this when it feels like they've really shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. I've never run an airline, so maybe this is short-sighted.
Just a little disclaimer here.
Yes, small disclaimer.
Gunnar and I have BAs in journalism,
Mm-hmm.
not in airline management. Have never worked for airlines, so grain of salt.
Yeah,
we may be full of it, but this is our podcast and not theirs.
Yeah, I've never run an airline, but you'd be hard pressed to say to me that when you put up a Southwest fare against a United fare and against a Delta fare, say they're all within $3 of each other, there is now no reason that I would choose Southwest over another airline. There's no extra bags on on Delta, I'm going to get in-flight entertainment and maybe some other perks and a little more reliability and the fact that the flight's going to be on time. Southwest, you're getting almost none of that. You might not even get an outlet at your seat, and it's going to be the same fare for the same price with no free bags. And I feel like they're no longer going to be competitive unless they start lowering their fares to like frontier level lows, like $20 one ways and things like that. I don't understand why someone would choose Southwest now unless they're super loyalists and they're already so deep in the ecosystem and they're so flush with Rapid Rewards that they just can't afford to make the switch. But I don't know. I'm running out of reasons to fly this airline, to be honest.
Yeah, and you touched on an interesting possibility of if, by in doing this, it allows Southwest to slash their fares even further and make them even cheaper and kind of compete more in the ultra low cost market with, the Spirits and Frontiers and Allegiants of the world, which, that might be a possibility. That is what we have seen every airline in the country do when they introduced basic economy, which Southwest is doing. So, if by unbundling their fares and charging separately for baggage and making all of these different changes that we've outlined allows them to bring prices even lower, maybe that works. But at the same time, if we've learned anything in the last 2 years, it's that the things that Spirit and Frontier don't make money, period, not let alone more of the profits that Southwest is after. So it's almost like they may be creating an even bigger problem for themselves. And I need to point out, and I posted this on social media. So if you're just reading the dumb words that I said and hearing them now from my dumb mouth, I apologize. Replacing wanna get away fares, which is some of the most brilliant branding in the entire airline industry, at least in the US market, with basic economy, is one of the biggest unforced errors I can think of. I mean, I can understand how, they're changing so much about the flying experience that in order to be honest with consumers, they can't call those cheapest fares wanna get away anymore. But to just get rid of wanna get away altogether, something that's basically synonymous with Southwest, just seems really, really foolish. I don't understand a lot of the decisions that they've made, but that one in particular is a real head scratcher to me.
Yeah, it's like changing the name of your fare to the only thing that people hate, which is basically basic economy. I mean, there's still time for
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
It's a bold strategy. Again, never run an airline.
Yeah.
Never run an airline. So what do I know?
If you want Gunnar and I to run your airline, please reach out to us at podcast@thriftytraveler.com. No, nobody wants that. I don't think I want that, just to be clear.
Yeah. What would you call our airline out there? Podcast@thriftytraveler.com. Let us know what you think. So there's a lot of time for these details to come out here. We have a few months on what these fares will, I guess, actually be called and what they will include. We have a general sense. And then, of course, come fall, we're going to start seeing assigned seating. And the extra legroom seats are going to start coming online here soon. The backlash has been pretty fierce, including in the last 10 minutes here. Is there any chance that Southwest backs off this?
No, because it's not, the people that you hear from quoted in the press releases about this that made the decision. It's ownership, it's the investors, it's Elliott Investment Management. They are the ones who are driving the bus here. If you haven't watched, not sure why you would, but maybe you should watch the video of CEO Bob Jordan explaining these changes, because you can just feel Elliott off screen with a gun in their hands talking about, why this needs to happen. I understand why people are so upset, because this goes against everything that people love about Southwest. I mean, in a single minute, in a single day, they blew up decades of brand loyalty around the idea that, customers' time was valued, that you're not going to get nickeled and dimed, that you're not going to get charged extra for baggage. And then, to make matters worse, and part of the reason why I feel so confident saying there's no chance that Southwest can backtrack on this, days after this, after causing, one of the biggest firestorms of, airline bad PR, why did you do this? I'm never going to fly you again. The first thing that they said publicly was on social media. And, they said some version of, it's not like we traded Luca. in reference to the admittedly very unpopular trade of a Dallas Mavericks NBA player to LA for, a questionable return. Sure. I'm also, in addition to not running airlines, I don't run NBA franchises. I probably can't even shoot a free throw, but at least the Dallas Mavericks got something for that trade. What did Southwest Flyers get? Nothing. They just get, getting charged probably, let's just say, you can safely assume $35 per bag each way. So they get, in exchange for, what Southwest did, they get the privilege of paying $70 or more per round trip ticket for what used to be included in the price of their fare.
Yeah. Short-term profits. I really hope it's worth it. And I want everybody to know it does not give us any pleasure to dunk on Southwest like this. I love Southwest Airlines, despite being the guy who told you don't be poor last episode. I am a budget traveler. I love Southwest. The 2 free check bags is really important for someone like me who often travels with a ski bag. And I'm hoping to have a family here soon, and I'm going to be traveling with more strollers and baby equipment. And a 2 free check bag airline is the kind of thing that I'll always keep in my mind when booking flights.
Right.
And now that doesn't exist, so I'm going to have to, do other things or just dive deeper into the Delta ecosystem, which is always a pain in my butt.
The house always wins, man.
Yeah.
No, it's so tough for families in particular. Everybody in our office, who has children and is traveling frequently pointed at this, suddenly being charged for baggage to bring all of the things that they need to travel with their children. Rightly point out how terrible this is for traveling families. So, it goes just beyond the budget traveler. It's, making any trip that you take more expensive, because all of a sudden, if you check 1 bag, let alone 2, that's going to cost you a lot more for every single ticket. And, as much as you and I can say, well, we'll just pack in a carry-on, that is not realistic for some people, especially for families. So I think it's especially brutal for them. There is a cynical part of this that we haven't really gotten to. You mentioned it at the top of this segment, which is that credit card holders will get 1 bag for free. That's a common perk for the entire U.S. airline industry. You can get a free check bag if you carry one of their co-branded credit cards. There's no question that is a huge factor in why Southwest is doing this, because airlines are not profitable without credit cards, period. They need those credit cards in order to survive. And there's no question that Southwest is banking on, and I'm sure that they're right, that by making free baggage a key benefit of their credit card, something that everybody used to get for free, they are going to drive a ton of credit card signups. And that is going to drive additional spending on those Southwest credit cards, which in turn is going to make them a lot more money than there wasn't as nearly as big of an incentive for people out there to pick up one of these Southwest credit cards. They just created one with these negative moves.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, I might just run right into their trap if I want to keep flying Southwest. Maybe they'll have a nice little sign-up bonus offer coming up here soon to try and get some more people in. But unfortunately, that might be exactly what we're looking at. I would love to hear from you listeners and viewers out there. Are you going to change the way you fly? Are you going to book around Southwest now, or are you all the way in still? podcast@thriftytraveler.com. I think we'd all be very interested to hear what people are doing with this new news.
Is that enough ripping on Southwest Airlines for one episode? Should we move on?
We'll take the rest off Mike, I think. But yeah, let's move on.
This is a family podcast. All right, let's go to our listener question of the week, which comes from Gene from Gainesville, who asked, what is the best, most efficient thing for me to do with the miles I've spent years accumulating? I have 97,000 Delta Sky miles and 128,000 Capital One miles. There is so much information. Gene, you are very correct about that. It is overwhelming. Honestly, I think it just confuses me more. I'm interested in a trip to Europe, probably in 2026. Gunnar, I think you've got some really, really good suggestions for Gene here.
Yeah, so if you really want to use the Sky Miles, hunt down a Delta Sky Miles flash sale. We will alert you to that on our Thrifty Traveler Premium Flight Deal Alert service, and also on our website. We love Sky Miles flash sales, and when They do run a good flash sale to Europe. You're looking at, round trips in the 40,000s, 50,000s, which is
sometimes less. I mean,
Yeah.
lately we've seen it under 30,000 sky miles round trip. And,
Yeah.
If you're set on going to Europe, you can wait for one of those. But otherwise, I mean, these kinds of flash sales where Delta will just randomly slash award pricing, it's pretty constant, especially if you're looking domestically down to the Caribbean, wherever. I mean, just kind of pocketing your sky miles to wait for one of these sales and jumping on something that you like is easily the best thing to do with sky miles these days.
Yeah. And as far as the Capital One miles, I would look at transfer partners like Air France, Air Canada, and most importantly, Emirates. Here's exactly what I would do, Gene. Gene from Gainesville, we're going to get you to Europe. You're going to transfer some of those points to Emirates. Emirates, 35,000 points round trip in economy from New York City to Milan or Athens. So that's JFK to Milan and Newark to Athens. It's nonstop. It's on Emirates. It's one of the best economies in the sky. Economy classes, that is, sorry. And better yet, you can also get it for 17,500 points each way. So here's exactly what I do with I would transfer 104,000 Capital One Venture miles. You're going to book one way to Europe in business class at 87,000 miles. And you're going to book the way back, the daytime flight in economy at 17.5 thousand miles. That's how you're using your Capital One miles. And you're just going to use the Sky Miles to position yourself to New York City and back from Gainesville. How's that sound for a trip?
I think Gene should go book this right now. You really can't do a whole lot better. If you're just talking about yourself, if you're thinking for a family to be able to book, round trip from JFK to Milan in Emirates economy for 70,000 miles for 2 tickets, that's a really incredible deal. Either way, you really can't go wrong. There's some good suggestions there, Gunnar.
Yeah. Really fun one. Thank you, Gene. If you want us to answer your question, email us at podcast@thriftytraveler.com, and your question might be featured in next week's show.
Oh, I'm excited for this. It's my turn to put you on the spot, Gunnar.
Okay.
All right. So professional athletes, they go back and watch tape. Aspiring podcasters go back and listen to tape. And let me tell you, in our first episode, 42 minutes long, I counted 12 instances where we talked about beer, wine, and booze. You even dropped a Kokanee reference, which is not the most popular beer out in British Columbia. Well, it's very popular in British Columbia. All right. So to put you on the spot, do we have a problem?
I was thinking, do we just turn this into a segment? Like, are we going to be able to turn off all the booze talk? I mean,
we did pretty good up until this point. So, we made it to the bitter end of the pod before we talked about booze again. So I think that's progress.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe we do a little offshoot Friday night secondary podcast called Booze Bags with Thrifty Traveler, and you and I just
trademark it.
Yeah, get all of our takes out about how much we like. But hey, guess what? When I'm on vacation, I'm usually thinking about having a drink or two. Maybe a couple of Kokanees when I'm in Canada next week. But, I can't really turn it off. This is part of travel for me, and I know it is for a lot of people out there too. But yeah, we referenced drinking quite a bit in the first episode. I guess we were also talking about the cost of things a lot.
That's
usually,
true.
Especially in the U.S., you're going to get dinged the hardest on booze. So maybe that's why it came up so often.
Whatever you got to tell yourself, man.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. It would mean a lot to us if you'd rate us 5 stars on your platform of choice and like and subscribe to Thrifty Traveler on YouTube. All that stuff helps others find the show. If you have feedback for us, just send me a note at podcast@thriftytraveler.com. We would really love to hear from you. I think I speak for Kyle when I say that the support so far has been really excellent. Some of the reviews you all have left have been way, way too kind for a couple of guys like us. So it's been really nice to see. Kyle, can you tell us who helped us put the show together this week?
Sure can. This episode was produced by our co-founder, Nick Cerati, and the man to my right, Gunnar Olson. It was edited by David Strutt. Our theme music is by Benjamin Tissot. See you next week, Gunnar.
See you, Kyle.